Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you. Hello, I'm your brother in faith, Shabir Ally, and I bring you another book review. Today, I'm reviewing this book. It's called Fiqh Us-Sunnah, and the title is given in Arabic, Fiqh Us-Sunnah, and also written out in English, Fiqh Us-Sunnah. And this particular volume is a collection of five volumes, which were published separately. I'll get to that in a moment. The author is As-Sayyid Sabiq, and he has given us an important work here, the details of which I will presently explain. So I said this is a combination of five volumes which were initially published separately. Volume 1 dealing with purification and prayer, Volume 2 dealing with supererogatory prayer, Volume 3 dealing with alms, tax, and fasting, meaning zakat and fasting, and Volume 4 dealing with funerals and dhikr, which means the remembrance of Allah, and Volume 5 dealing with Hajj and Umrah, the performing of the pilgrimage, the greater and lesser pilgrimage to Mecca. Now, this, though it is a collection of 5 volumes, this is not the complete work that's translated from Arabic. The Arabic work is larger, and there is also a 4-volume translation that is there in the market, but I wouldn't recommend that because the English rendering is very poor. Sometimes it's difficult to understand what is being said, and one might even get the wrong impression of what is being said following that English translation. But this one is a good one. This is excellent, actually, done by Muhammad Saeed Dabas and Jamaluddin Zaragoza. This one is published by American Trust Publications. So, why do I feel that this book is important? Well, dealing with the subject matter of worship and going all the way up to funerals and so on, dealing with Hajj and Umrah and all of that, this is of relevance to every Muslim. Every Muslim needs to know how to practice purification before the prayer, and what are the details of the prayer, and how do we fast? What are the rules regarding fasting? What will break the fast? What does not break the fast? And so on. So we need to know all of those rules. So where do we go for that? We go to a book like this. Now, there are compendia of Islamic law that each would cater to a particular school. So you have, if you're follow a Hanafi school, then you would go to the Hanafi law book. If you follow the Shafi school, you go to a Shafi law book. And there are many such law books, one for each school, many for each one pertaining to its particular school. But in our modern cosmopolitan societies, we find ourselves interacting with Muslims who are not necessarily following a school that we have always been familiar with. So we need to understand the other Muslim. We need to know why the other Muslim is praying differently, or why they're practicing a different rule. Why is it that I consider one thing to be haram to eat, but my fellow Muslim is eating it and he's enjoying it and saying it is halal, according to his school of Islamic jurisprudence? So how do we understand all of these different rulings given by great Muslim scholars in various parts of the Muslim world? Well, this book will give you a better understanding, because when we go to each subject matter, we will find that a variety of interpretations are given. There may be a verse of the Quran on the subject matter, and that verse of the Quran might be interpreted differently by various scholars. There may be hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, but those very hadiths may be interpreted differently by various scholars. And not only the interpretation might be different, but also the gradation of the hadith. One scholar may say this hadith is the most authentic on this issue, and the other scholar may say, no, this hadith is not authentic. So you have this kind of variety of interpretation that is cataloged in this book, chapter by chapter, section by section. So by reading this, you get a holistic impression, a broader understanding and a deeper understanding of the various subjects as to why we Muslims pray differently one to another. While, of course, there is a core that is common to all Muslims, at the same time, you can see some superficial aspects. We've been wondering about that. Well, the answer is right in this book. So it is a necessary book to consult, even if you are comfortable reading a law book that's guiding you in a simple manner. regarding the requirements of your own school of Islamic jurisprudence, this will be a book that helps you to get that broader and necessary understanding. So let me give you some examples of what you will find. So you come to, you're praying, and some Muslims in the mosque are saying Ameen aloud after Surah Al-Fatiha. So we go, Wala Dallin, and people say, Ameen. I experienced this especially in Malaysia, where it is a common practice. Everybody says it in unison. It sounds so beautiful that everybody says it all at once. It's a common practice. So, but in some other parts of the world, it is not done. It is done silently, not allowed. So what accounts for this difference? Well, it has a lot to do with the narrations of hadith. Some narrations say that the Prophet, peace be upon him, in his mosque used to recite it aloud, or that the companions at least were saying it out loud. It is so loud that the mosque was shaking. We can see that kind of exaggeration there. But nonetheless, you see that there are narratives that will give you the idea that you are not to say it aloud. And then there are narratives that give you the idea that you must say it aloud. Some people take one narrative, some people took the other narrative. Of course, you might try to reconcile them, but sometimes they're not so easily reconcilable. And that gives rise to the different interpretations and different practices. So too, when it comes to raising our hands before going into ruku', the genuflection, and coming back from that genuflection. Some people raise their hands, some people do not raise their hands at that time. So what accounts for this were the different narratives. In Iraq, where the Hanafi school was developing, the narrative that took hold there is the one that says that the Prophet, peace be upon him, did not raise his hand except at the beginning of the prayer. That means at the start, one raises one's hands, says Allahu Akbar, and then the prayer begins, and then never again during the prayer. But then, in other areas, we have hadiths circulating, and these hadiths became popular in the Hijaz, and they were collected by the scholars in those areas, and found themselves in the major collections of hadith, like Bukhari and Muslim and so on. These say that the hands are to be raised at every juncture. So before the ruku', after the ruku', and so on. So coming back up from ruku', one raises the hands again. This becomes now a common practice, and some people who insist on following the hadiths which are in those classical works like Bukhari and Muslim and so on will insist upon raising the hands at these junctures. And so we have these different ways of doing things, based on different narratives, sometimes based on interpretations of different narratives. And by reading a book like this, we develop more tolerance for other people and for various views, because we realize that it's not just simply one view on a subject that we must follow, but the source materials give rise to different views, so that even our great scholars who are sincere in trying to follow the Quran and the life example of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, came to different conclusions on various minor points. But the core of the religion is common to us all, and that's what binds us together, that's what unites us, that's what we should celebrate. And the minor points that we're differing about, whether we say Ameen aloud or silently, whether we raise our hands at a certain juncture or not within the prayer, all of these are minor points that we should not be quarreling about, but we should respect each other for, and we should enjoy that variety, and we should be tolerant regarding it. Is there anything about the book that I don't like? Well, what I would have wished is that the author, maybe somewhere in the introduction or something like this, should have given us a primer to prime us for the difference of opinions that we'll find. Otherwise, what happens is that the newcomer comes with a preconceived idea that we'll find the answer to a certain question, and it'll be one answer, and it'll be very clear. And then we go to the chapter dealing with that, or the section, and we realize that there are so many bewildering opinions that at the end we don't even know what the conclusion is, and why there is this bewildering array of opinions. So it would have been good if the author had given us a primer to let us know that this is the nature of Islamic law. You're not going to get just one answer. You're going to get 3 or 4 different answers on a question, and that's fine. That's how the Islamic law is, but it's not meant for the average person to have 3 or 4 different answers. The average person must consult an expert on the subject and get a better understanding. But a book like this will give us that better understanding as well. And so I encourage you to read it. It is a book that I continue to refer to again and again, and I have for decades now. And it has changed my life. And I hope that it will make a difference to you as well. Perhaps it might even change your life. Thank you for watching. Peace be with you. Assalamu alaikum. My dear friends, I want to appeal to you to support the important work we're doing this Ramadan. Visit QuranSpeaks.com and click Donate. May God reward you for your generosity, and may you have a blessed Ramadan.